Faith Formation Center, where we have the Shroud of Turin display, a story of hope.
Okay, Father Matthew, pastor here at St. Brendan's, Legionary of Christ, been here for 6 years, 7 years, kind of just finished the renovation program. This is part of it. We're going to do a quick tour of the Shroud of Turin to see if it's something we might want to replicate at St. Joseph's. Okay, super speed.
Okay, so the Shroud of Turin is a detective story. The problem is death and life after death. The bad guy are skeptics. Here are the questions we're trying to answer. Here's the history of the Shroud of Turin. Before 100 years ago, there was no history written on it. So now we have a history. What is a shroud? This is the marks on the shroud, all the marks, and how a body was laid into it. The carbon-14 dating problem, which people often cite as the skeptics, and the reason why the carbon-14 dating does not prove that the shroud is not the original shroud of our Lord, because there was problems in the way they did the scientific study. Here are all the most recent scientific studies. The last one, 2017, determined that in order to create the shroud, it would take 34 trillion watts of UV light. Here's the negative, what it was discovered that you could make a negative of the shroud, that the shroud is a negative, and a negative becomes a positive when they discovered photography. A replica of the crown of thorns. A little of the story of the crown of thorns, and proof that from the shroud that the man of the shroud had a crown of thorns. The Lord was tortured. These are the instruments of torture. A little bit about what they are. And the effect, the blood on the Shroud of Turin. So the man of the shroud was whipped. This is his chest. The witnesses say he was crucified, and the shroud shows that he was crucified in his hands and in his feet. So the witnesses follow the evidence. This is the picture of this is what a spear from the Romans would look like. And this is, the story says that he was pierced when after he had died. The science shows that the blood and serum separated in a corpse, that in this place of the shroud is the only place where those have separated. So he was stabbed after he died. This is the room we keep the shroud. So here's a recap of the story of the shroud and what a tomb would look like and where Jesus was laid. This is the negative image, full size. Jesus was roughly 5'10", 5'11". And here is the replica, an exact replica of the Shroud of Turin. As you see, the blood marks. That's what always gets me, the blood marks. That's blood. The negative image of the back, showing all the places he was struck. But that's not the end of the story. He rose on Easter morning. And that rising, they talk about there was lightning that morning, some sort of light like lightning, which goes back to the making of the shroud. The fact that they went to the tomb and they found burial cloths, they found burial cloths, they found the burial cloths. We say that the burial cloths they found is the shroud. And the witnesses that saw Jesus risen from the dead in the 40 days before his ascension. And again, that's not the end of the story, because after the ascension, many people over 2,000 years continued to see him appear and talk to him, and they are witnesses as well. Faustina was told after she saw him to, "You paint as you see me." So she had a painting made, what we know as the Divine Mercy painting. This is the painting she approved.
You don't have...
We don't have the "we trust in you" down here because that's not evidence, that's a conclusion. We only put evidence up to this point. Here we draw our conclusions.